Branden, you're one of the craziest and most animated friends that I have. Over the past 3 years, we have created a brotherly bond that will last for a lifetime. I would truly miss our crazy car rides and our epic baseball seasons together. I know you do great things on the diamond and off the diamond at Danville next year. You're the Trevor Bauer to my Austin Barnes. Now introducing Branden, aka B Money.
Like any senior, I struggled to figure out what I wanted to talk about. At first, I wanted to talk about my love of baseball, but I felt that I talked about that a little bit too much. Then I came up with the idea to talk about my 3-year-old brother and making a video of all the crazy things he has done. Unfortunately, I lost all videos that I've taken of him since freshman year because I forgot to back my phone up and dropped it in the toilet. So here I am talking about my nicknames. Over the years, I've acquired many nicknames. In 4th grade, my friend came up with a great idea to call me BW because there were multiple Brandens in the class. In 7th grade, my baseball teammates started to call me B-Dubs, which later turned into just Dubs a year later. Coming to USM freshman year, I didn't know anyone. For the first time ever, I was nervous to go to school. I was uncomfortable. I didn't have any friends who went here or anything like that. But it didn't take long for me to make some friends at USM though. Being one of the many new kids in the school, I definitely gained a lot of attention from people in my grade. I remember in my first study hall, since I was a new kid, everyone asked me a lot of questions. What's your name? What school did you come from? Do you have a nickname? When I answered the last question, Reed Woods took it upon himself to give me a new nickname, one that would stick with me my 4 years here at USM. He said, "How about B Money?" And before I could even say no, Reed tells the room that my new nickname is B Money. At first, I didn't really like the nickname, but it eventually became a part of who I am today. Now, whenever someone says my actual name, it's a little shocking. Sometimes I want to correct them and tell them my name's B Money. But then I have to remember that my name is Branden. That being said, only call me B Money from now on. Thank you.
My earliest memories of my sister Irene all follow a similar pattern. There was a time she fell off the roof of the garage. There was a time she fell down the front steps. There was a time she fell down the basement stairs. And then there was the second time when she fell off the garage. But she seems to be past that now. And as she says, she is now the golden child. So I hope you all enjoy her speech, and I present my sister, Irene Gay.
Hi everyone. When considering what I wanted to write about for my senior speech, I considered several ideas, but I kept coming back to something I've never been brave enough to share, which is my creative writing. One of my strongest regrets in high school is not participating in the open mic program or submitting to the Phoenix. So today, I'll be reading a flash fiction piece I wrote last summer. It's based emphasis on very, loosely on my own experience growing up in the Catholic Upper Midwest. Riveting, I know. Without further ado, this is my piece, Married. The basement at St. Catherine's always smells of death and rye bread. Death because when the sun is still seated on the horizon, the Sisters of St. Francis smoke their cigarettes in the basement bathroom and cough up their sins. You saw them once when the body of Christ gave you the runs. Rye bread, you're not so sure. Maybe it's Father Tim who chews on his tongue and carries his must and shame on his shoulders. Father Tim who touched your neck and limbs, even when he started balding, even when his cloak became heavy, even when his eyes sunk into his skull. The basement is filled with empty caskets and lists of names, of condolences, of baby pictures and non-perishables. Miss May's gummy jar for the kids who answer her questions, but only the true believers are allowed to speak back to Miss May. The paper dolls, John the Baptist, Virgin Mary, baby Jesus, all the children of the world, but only the children who believe, and all the angels of heaven, but only the angels with smiling paper faces. Parties after every baptism, when you're relegated to the back wall with the breastfeeders and mouth breathers and Protestants. Grandma knows you're worse than a Protestant, even if you do not know it yourself. Miss May asks her about your education, asks about your broadening body, asks about the frizz in your hair. How did a good Irish woman raise an infidel? Grandma doesn't say that she's never been to Ireland or that she's humiliated by your condition, but Miss May will see it in her eyes. In the stiffness of midday July, the pea-green car seats buckle under your weight. Grandma takes your hand and places a plasticky red rosary inside. She presses the shape of the bead so tightly into your fingers that your skin purples, reminds you to repent that in addition to the affliction, you might never become a whore, a money launderer, or worse, English. Then she says what she always does. I'll pray for you. I'll pray for your soul to be saved. And again, because 3 is lucky, I'll pray for you. She'll pray for you again tomorrow, and the next day, and until you're fixed, or until she meets with God to put a good word in. Thank you.
Me and Jordan have been best friends for as long as I can remember, from kindergarten playdates to dinners before dance, up to trips to Six Flags and Door County. Nothing has been able to tear us apart, including going to different schools for the past 6 years. Jode, you've been there for me no matter what, and it's been a privilege to know that I'll always have you by my side. I know you're going to do amazing things in the future, and I'm going to miss you like no other. Now introducing Jordan Sadoff.
If there's one thing that you should all know about me, it's that I love going to summer camp. I've been going to an all-girls overnight camp called Camp Birch Trail for the past 7 years. During these 7 years, I made the most amazing memories, lifetime friendships, and learned some of the most valuable lessons. I came to camp as an 8-year-old girl who had never been away from home for more than a week. But as soon as I stepped off the bus, the positive energy captivated me and I fell instantly in love. After 7 years, Camp Birch Trail has helped shape me into the person I am today. The majority of my favorite memories from camp came from my trips. I was lucky enough to sea kayak in the Apostle Islands, canoe in the Boundary Waters, and backpack around an island in the middle of Lake Superior for a week. Though these were some of the most challenging experiences at camp, they were also the most rewarding. For all the cramps, blisters, and bruises, there were also sunrises and sunsets, fantastic trip food, and memories that will last a lifetime. Though these trips taught me a lot about myself, I learned how strong I truly was when I went on my Explorers solo. Explorers is a program at camp where you can learn the basics of camping, but you have to spend 24 hours alone in the woods to finish the program. When I headed out for my solo, I was only given a tarp, some rope, a few protein shakes, and a sleeping bag. This was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, not to mention that I had a bad cold a week prior. Besides the fact that I had to build my own tent and ration my own food, I had to go 24 hours without human contact. Finding ways to keep myself busy was one of the most difficult things to do, but I ended up successfully completing the challenge. I'd never been more proud of myself, and it showed me just how strong I was. Through my camp experience, I learned that you should never be afraid to try something and step out of your comfort zone, because you never know what will come from it. I know this may sound cheesy, but it's really true. I met my best friend to this day through camp, and I could not be more grateful. I was even able to go on a service trip to Thailand with a friend I met at camp. If I'd never gone to summer camp, I would still be that shy little 8-year-old girl afraid to try new things. So I encourage all of you to take the time and try new things with the time in high school you have left, because it really does go by faster than you realize. Finally, I would like to thank everyone who has made me into the person I am today, including my family, friends, teachers, and everyone at Camp Birch Trail. Thank you. That's it.
Hello, my name is Kristian. I go to University School in Milwaukee and I'm in 6th grade. I'm Kai's brother. Growing up with Kai is amazing. That's the best way to put it. There's so many fun times where he always helped me with sports. Sports is a big part of my life, as a lot of people know. And it's just amazing how he was the one person who could help me in that part of my life. I wouldn't have been to where I am without Kai in education, in sports, and anything. Life wouldn't be the same without Kai in it.
We all bear a scar of some sort, whether it be from childhood clumsiness or an accident, whether it be hidden under clothing or in plain sight. Everyone has at least received one in his or her lifetime. Yet the lesser talked about one, and often overlooked one due to its tendency to remain undetected, is the mental scar, the engraving of a memory or challenging time that pushed you to your limits. Such a mental scar was revealed to me at a very young age as my relationship with my grandma, or Oma, grew. She felt comfortable sharing very deep and personal memories and aspects of her life, which consequentially shaped and developed my character and mindset. And I would want to share a little bit with you today. I was 12 years old and sitting in a hammock tied in the backyard in Saalach, just outside Stuttgart, Germany. I had just finished watching a documentary on World War II, and my almost teenage mind was racing with information. My Oma was sitting opposite of me with her shades on and sun hat, relaxing and absorbing the summer sun. I began abruptly talking about the documentary I had just watched, peppering her with questions about her experience. I knew that she was born on a farm in Bohemia, a then German protectorate in Czechoslovakia. However, I had little to no knowledge of her childhood or the journey from her birthplace to Germany. She at first seemed a little taken aback before rising from her chair and telling a tale which I was not expecting. My Oma was born in 1943 as the youngest of 5 children. In May of 1945, as the Soviet army was marching towards Bohemia, her entire family was forced to leave on foot with only what they could carry on their backs. As they battled the elements, hunger, and the echoes of ending war, they joined the caravan of expelled Germans and arrived weeks later in a small town in Bavaria, more than 250 miles away. They managed to survive the war, yet were tested again as the new chapter of German history began. Luckily, they ended up in territory controlled by U.S. forces and escaped Soviet communism. She grew up poor, but with tremendous work ethic and resilience. They established their new lives step by step. My Oma found work as an accountant, working tirelessly to excel at her position. She married my grandpa, or Opa, in 1968 and retired comfortably in 1999. In 2003, she moved again, this time to the United States to live with my family, leaving a country full of family, friends, and memories behind. Undoubtedly, having my Oma as a role model, an active member of my household, has enriched my life. For one, I'm fluent in German, and I have excellent German food, just to name a few, and has instilled in me a very strong belief system. As both of my parents worked, I spent most of my days at a young age with her, and this close relationship shaped my values and decision-making process. Before important or difficult events, I look at a picture of my Oma that I carry with me in my wallet. Her being able to overcome so many obstacles gives me strength and confidence that I can as well. Oma's experience reminds me of the joy of the simple things in life and to never take anything for granted. A memorable impression can last a lifetime, and due to her impression on me, I understand that I am a small part of history, but that my actions also have weight. Whether it be academic or in everyday life, I push myself to take initiative and to tackle adversity with persistence and dedication. Gratitude, humbleness, and love for others are all values that she has instilled in me. And so, as my speech comes to a close, I beckon you all to take one thing away from this, and that is to tackle every obstacle with dedication and persistence, because in the end, you might just make it there. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kristian, and I am one of Veronica's childhood best friends. We met at a very young age, and she's just a very special person to me because we've been through thick and thin with each other. She's a very caring and intelligent person, and since we go to different schools, it's hard to see each other all the time, but when we do see each other, it's not awkward. We're both very loud, outspoken, and I just love that about us, and we just have a great friendship. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Veronica Castro.
Hi, my name is Veronica, and ever since my freshman year, the only senior speeches I would remember were the people I already knew about. And I don't think any of you, besides some, know much about me. Therefore, this speech is to let you know a little bit more about me in the last few months I have left of high school. To begin, I'm 17 years old with two sisters, the oldest Daniela and the youngest Selena. Neither of my parents finished high school because of the lack of money in their family. And not wanting to have the same fate for their children, they moved from Mexico to the US. This leads us to here, to living in the south side of Milwaukee. However, I didn't realize the experiences of hearing gunshots outside were uncommon until I started talking to my friends about it. Yes, I know they're gunshots because fireworks tend to be sporadic and those are not. It's actually kind of crazy how many stories I can recall of just living in the south side, either with the police, the number of times our cars have gotten broken into or vandalized, and what my family had to endure, especially getting racially profiled by the police. But that's a different story for a different time. And even with these occurrences, I've come to really love my house and my neighborhood in general, because that's where I spent the most of my childhood, growing up with my sisters, my cousins, friends, and my family in general. Our house was always a spot for hosting birthday parties, cookouts, and New Year's parties, as long as we didn't pay attention to the crime rate. Now, I first came to USM my freshman year, and coming from a low-income Mexican family, we didn't know much about what it meant to prepare for college, let alone finishing high school was already an achievement in and of itself. And because we knew so little of the college application and research process, it kind of led to my older sister becoming a full-time student and juggling a full-time job. I'm not sure how she does it, but it's only encouraged me to try and steer away from putting myself into debt. Therefore, the next 3 years at USM will really just be worrying about how I would ever afford the rising costs of college, let alone as a first-generation student. And it sucked. I didn't really have anyone besides my older sister, who was already juggling a lot on her plate, for me to talk to someone who actually understood. To be blunt, I've already had 7 cousins who've dropped out of high school, which shifted the spotlight to me and the family. However, what did make my experience 100% better was finding genuine friends at USM, as well as making time for my family. I love my big family. I love my parents, my sisters, even though our fights can get pretty messy. I love blasting the Spanish music my dad and I share the same love for. I enjoy cooking with my mom, even though everything she does is just guessing how many spices to add. And spending time with my sisters driving around the city. And I take great pride to be in such a hardworking family. I enjoy hanging out with my friends, laughing about the dumb experiences we went through, and creating new memories with them. And it is these experiences that I cherish and what didn't let the weight of figuring out how life and the unpredictability of the future affect me. Even though my friends couldn't relate to my experiences, I know I could still confide in them and what was happening. I won't lie, I'm still scared as to how I will ever afford college, especially after putting my best foot forward, but I know eventually it will all work out. Now, if there's anything you can get out of this, is to hold your friends and family close and make the most out of your high school experience, because it is only temporary, and most importantly, it is only the very small beginning to the life ahead of you. Thank you.
At the same time, you occasionally talk out of turn, and this can be distracting for both me and your classmates. This was in middle school. A few years prior, my teacher wrote, "You need to work on greater self-control." And just in 2018, I got, "You need to work, not stand up and talk to other classmates during lecture." Since I started receiving them 13 years ago, the comments on my report cards have almost always followed this trend. And I'll be the first to admit that I probably deserve most of them. However, you can imagine my surprise last year in math class when I was talking out of turn and Mr. Bertucci just said, "That's okay, Wali, you're usually pretty quiet, so I'm glad you guys are chit-chatting a bit." You see, I've always been pretty talkative and energetic my whole life, and as I'm sure many of you can agree, this isn't always the best trait to have in the context of school. Teachers really aren't lying when they say that distracting behavior is distracting. I'm still pretty surprised that my geometry classmates didn't start a referendum to get me booted from the class altogether. At this stage, I'd kind of fallen into the social niche of being more talkative, energetic, and funny. And being put into a social role like that can often be like a runaway freight train where it's harder and harder to stop acting that way because you're not quite sure whether people like you because you fill that role or whether they like you for you. For example, on my wrestling team, my social niche was quite the opposite of how I'd felt throughout my life in school, where I was quite timid and rarely cracked jokes. This behavior probably stemmed from many different things, such as not being a great wrestler or being severely intimidated by my teammates at first. But my point is that Behavior that you may think is intrinsically tied to you as a person may just be the product of your environment and the people you're around. And even if it isn't, the overall point that the right people will like you if you act how you want to act still stands, right? And so how did I personally make quite a drastic change in my overall behavior? I would say it was the realization that people really don't care. See, when I used to arrive to school, it often felt like I was an actor getting ready to put on a show, you know? I felt like people needed their chemistry class entertainment. But in reality, they really don't care. They don't care if you're a little bit less funny than usual today. They don't care if your tie is a bit wrinkled. And they don't care that your voice cracked during a presentation. So whether you're looking to take the day off from the social job that you feel like you have to fulfill, or whether you want to switch careers entirely, don't be afraid to do so. Thank you.